everybody. We're going to talk a little bit more about some objects today. Now, if you saw my previous videos, you should have seen the video where we created, kind of intro objects. We created a rectangle right here. Zoom in a little bit. See that? And we had the main where we did most of the work. So what we're going to do today is just create a couple more objects here. Now, well, one more object specifically, maybe another, we'll see. We made a rectangle last time, which was pretty simplistic. It has a length and a width. We could also make some other things. So let's go ahead and, once you've got this opened, you can right click on this default package. If it's hidden, you can click the pluses and drill down into it. And if you're using Eclipse or some other IDE, it might be a little different, but we just want to make a new Java class. And we'll call this circle. Boom. And we can make rectangles and circles. Now to make a circle, we, again, just like any other object, have to kind of decide 1, attributes, 2, methods that are going to be used on this, and constructor. There we go. It's usually the order I go in. So what represents a circle? Well, in geometry class, if memory serves, we usually have a radius. So I'll make myself a private double radius. And there you go. And of course, constructor, we just want to build it, so public circle. And it's going to be the same name as the file. I can give it a radius, in this case, double radius. And I can say this dot radius equals radius. And again, we could just call this R. And then I wouldn't really necessarily need this here. It knows because there's only one there. But still, I'm going to do it this way. Because it is the radius that I'm passing. Makes it a little easier for that. So now if I wanted to make another constructor, I could make a default one where I just set the radius to 1 or something without giving it anything. So now, for methods, what can we do with a circle, right? We've got, let's see here, circumference, I think, if I remember correctly. So we can find that. Finding an area of a circle as well. So we can do a couple of different things. We don't really need to do anything fancy. I'm just going to make one that prints the radius. First off, public void print. And I'm just going to simply say the radius is plus radius. And again, I could say this dot radius. Since there isn't another radius here, it pretty much defaults to knowing that it's this guy. So we got a print. If I wanted a set and get method, since this is private, I would do that now. Just there we go. Yeah, public. In this case, if I wanted a get, it would have to be a double get radius. And all it's going to do is simply just return the radius. And for some odd reason, didn't make my brace for me. And if you want to give this a try, make a set, like what we did before. Set radius. I'll leave that out. But it's not that hard. You pass in a number. It basically looks pretty similar to this. And it's a void. Though technically you could make it a, if you had some if statements and some other stuff in there to make sure it's within ranges, you could make it a Boolean that would return something if it managed to make the change or something. There's actually a couple different ways you could approach that. So let's see, area. I'm just going to say public Now, if I want to get the area, that means get the number instead of print it, I'd make this a double. If I just want to print it, I would, make this a void. So it depends on what you want to do. Just printing something pretty much just shows it on the screen and you can't actually do anything with that number. So I'm going to make this a get area. And what we're going to do is and it's going to be a double. There we go. And again, I like making these comments at the end of the braces because it just lets me know that that's supposed to be the end of that. Just in case you have multiple braces, it makes it a lot easier to figure out where you are. No one likes a program that looks like this at the end of it. That's just asking for you to screw something up. But I find it's much better organized if you just make comments after each one. So let's see. For the area, I could just say return and then do the math. I'm going to do it this way. Double area equals, what is it? 2 times the radius times math.pi, I think. Or 3.14 if I wanted to be less specific, I guess. I believe that's the area, right? Boom. And of course is it the area or the diameter? Let's find out. Well, no, I'm sure we'll be okay. Whether that's the area or diameter. Return, or diameter is 2r. So the diameter is from one side of the thing to the other. That's right. Area should be roughly this, I think. Let's see here. Return area. It's been a while since I've had to figure out the area of a circle or something. Of course, I could be accidentally figuring out the circumference, maybe. Or is that a different formula? 2r times radius times pi. So 2 of the radiuses, yeah, that's right, times pi should give us circumference area. I may have to look that up later. All right, so with the way this works here, we've got a couple of methods here. Now we can create circles. Now, since they're all in this project file, and you notice there's a little red line there, it's just a little delay. It'll go away after I run something. There it goes. So, with this, they're both in the same file. And yes, that is the area of a circle. I just double checked it. You always going to make sure your math is right. Which I think is also called the circumference of a circle. Well, either way, we got what we need right here. Now, I can have as many objects in a file as I want. I can have blocks, boxes, chickens, swords, people, and all those objects will be listed here. And not just with the squares or rectangles or whatever else, I can actually come down in here and make some circles too. 5.0. And there we go. I can just say c1 dot print, as that prints the radius of that circle. I could also do the get area, which is a return, so I have to say c1 dot get area. And since it's 5, we get 2 times r, which is 10, times pi, so 31.415, and so forth. So I can make as many of these as I want. I could even come down and, like I did before, make arrays of these if I want. So, for example, circle C, and I just make this an array, equals new circle. Now, the problem with this here is, let's just make it 5. There we go. Is I've created basically an array of objects. But remember, to actually create an object, we have to have this equals new rectangle. We have to call the constructor. Now, this, when you say equals new circle, you may think, well, that's doing it, right? No, this is basically an array is an object of objects. An array is an object. And all these circles go in that array. Now, every circle is basically null. If I were to say c0.print, I'm going to get an error, specifically a null pointer exception. And when you see that, that means that I have this object here, but I haven't actually created the objects in the array. When you create an array of objects, slot 0 is null. Slot 1 is null. Everything is null until you go in there and individually say C0 equals new circle. Yeah, let's go with 2. Once I do that, then my circle exists. I've created it. The phrase is instantiated it. It's been created. Now in this case, C0 is the only one that's been created. I could make a for loop that does this. New circle, random number. That would be a good little challenge move for you. Make a for loop with a random number generator. And, ci equals new circle random. Ci equals new circle random. And it would do this for the entire array and basically just create a random number of circles. Well, I can make it create a random number of circles, all random shapes and sizes. We can do pretty much whatever we want there. In fact, later on, when we get to the point where we will make something a little more visual, something you can actually see, maybe we'll try that, just to, that might be a good exercise. Make 20 circles or squares or rectangles or whatever of different shapes and sizes and colors, whatever we want to add to it. Just making an array. And boom, it'll make a whole bunch of them. Just like that. Although you don't necessarily need an array to make a whole bunch of them. This depends on what you're doing. I can make an array of bullets, an array of monsters, an array of areas, so on and so forth. You can make it as complicated as you want. You can make a two-dimensional array, big square, of tiles, of maps, of whatever you want. But this is just another example of objects. You don't necessarily have to just have one object per file. You can actually have as many as you want. And you can even have them interact with each other. I could actually go into a rectangle and, have it do things to a circle and vice versa. If I really, really wanted to, which I don't. But a good example of that would be making a character and then making a sword. And that character can equip the sword. But that's something you might see a little bit later on. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know.